Hey guys, Solomon here. Hope you're having a great day. Today we're looking at round 4 in my recent Memorial Weekend tournament. And yeah, I mean, at this point, it's been a roller coaster, right? I'm 1 out of 3. Okay, I've only won one game, and that game happens to be against a 2500 in round 1, right? So a great start, and then I end up losing 2 games, right? One of them to a 2279, and then in the third game, someone lower rated than me, right? So all those points that I gained in the first round, I've pretty much lost nearly all of them in the last 2 rounds. So now I'm going into game 4. Psychologically, I got to admit, I'm not in the best place. I'm kind of just wanting a quick win. I'm kind of just hoping that I don't lose 3 in a row after beating a 2500. And yeah, I'm kind of spiraling down a little bit. But you know me, I'm playing the Hippo, right? In fact, up to this point, every single game that I've played, I've got a good position with the Hippo. It's just that in 2 of those games, I ended up fumbling it, right? So here we go. 4th game with the Hippo. I'm going up against my guy Byron. He starts the game off with D4, and I go with my usual as black 1, 2, and 3, right? We have E3, I play E6, and if you play the Hippo, you know what we're doing, right? We're tucking those knights, we're fianchettoing the bishops, but you may notice here, after rook E1, I don't finish the Hippo with A6. I play the move of G5, and this may seem a little bit strange, right? Because I'm always talking about the importance of A6 and H6. However, in my course, I talk about when not to play a move like H6 or A6, or at least, you know, moments where it could be a waste of time. This is one of those moments, right? A6 here, I don't really think it's the best move for black, right? Now, that being said, in a situation like this, A6 could still be valuable if we're trying to eventually play C5, right? The reason for that is because if we just play C5, this knight at times could jump into B5 and cause us havoc, right? So A6 kind of gives us a safeguard against this move. However, just like I talk about in the course, what are the other 2 reasons where we play a move like A6? Not just to support C5, but first off, to prepare against something like A4 and A5 from white, right? In that case, we're ready to launch with B5. But notice, in this case, because there is a pawn on C4, we can't do that, right? So if we play A6, white plays A4, we can't just wait for A5 and be ready to push, because guess what? We're going to lose our pawn, right? So in that case, we're going to have to play A6, A4, and then look at a move like A5, okay? At least have to consider it, right? The other reason that we could play A6 is to not just prepare for A5 from white, but to play B5 ourselves. But again, with a pawn on C4, this is just off the cards. It's just off the table, right? Not to mention that A6 here, you could argue, okay, well, it supports C5. Guys, C5 is also off the table because this bishop attacks that pawn on D6, right? So A6 here, I simply ignore it, and I instead go with the move of G5, right? Attacking that bishop. By the way, if you guys are interested in learning more about the Hippo, I made a 6+ hour course on it, and I'll leave a link to it in the description below. But yeah, I play G5. I'm just making some space here on the king side, kick that bishop back, tuck the knight. This is one of, really my favorite middle game idea for the Hippo. Just easy way to gain some space, and yeah, just get our pieces moving a little bit. And I mean, here we see this move of rook B1, and I play H5. Play H5 very quickly. Again, at this point, psychologically, guys, I'm not, patient right now. I'm not patient, right? I've just lost 2 games. I just lost a heartbreaker against Esther in game 3, a game that I thought I should have won, and somehow it just kind of slipped out of my hands. And even when the game was over, I'm like, I don't really know where I messed up, right? It wasn't like necessarily like an instant thing. It felt more like a gradual loss, right? Just getting grinded down. So around 4 here, I'm just playing fast, right? I play H5. Now, there's an idea behind H5, okay? And to show you, I'm going to switch the position, okay? You guys are probably thinking, why am I switching the position? I just played this move in this position. I'll get there, okay? But I'm going to switch it from this position from black to this one. What's the difference? The game, right? Not the game. The game, not the game. This move H5 is something that I've been giving more thought to recently. Okay, and I really haven't seen a ton of players use it, but it is a dangerous option with the Hippo. And this idea that I'm about to show you, I've won with online before against solid players. Okay, now what are we doing with H5? Well, we're simply looking to play G4, right? Just breaking that kingside open, which is great for us because we haven't castled kingside. We have a rook aimed towards the king side of the board in addition to a bishop. But what happens if we move like knight d2? Well, we're playing d4 anyways. We're playing g4, And we're actually going to invite the bishop to take that pawn. We're going down a pawn, but we now have this move of queen h4, threatening a mate in 1. If the bishop wants to run away, we still have a mate in 1, right? White here, they got to do something. If they play knight f3, defending that bishop, guess what just got undefended? The bishop on g4. So if you go there, we simply win a piece, right? If you play bishop h3, we can take on g2. Nasty idea. Again, I've used this online, right? It's a solid idea, right? Plug it in. Very sound moves from black. We take on g2. If you take with the bishop, if you take with the bishop here, we simply have a mate in 1, right? Obviously, I just did that. That was an accident. Okay, queens do not move like knights. Queens move like queens. Okay, so if the bishop takes, mate in 1. And if the king takes, well, we're just going to start taking these bishops out, right? Simply a game over. So what I just showed you was this position. Now we're going to switch over to the game. What's the difference? Well, instead of a pawn on a3, we have a rook on e1. My opponent, Byron, plays this move of knight d2. And all of a sudden, I go, oh my gosh, I've lost 2 games. And I played a terrible h5 move, right? Because I realized that the rook is no longer on f1. I went, oh my gosh, g4 here doesn't work. Because after queen h4, white has knight f1. I just missed this, right? I'm thinking, gosh, like now I'm just down a pawn, right? Surprisingly enough, the computer gives a good edge to black still. Okay, now this line, I'm not honestly upset that I missed this. I never could find this. Okay, this is one of those stockfish lines. Knight ge5. Okay. Okay, I didn't find this. Stockfish did. Okay, so yeah, apparently that's the move for black, right? Just threatening this bishop. Again, this bishop can't move. Mate in 1, right? And if you take with the d pawn, we're just going to take again. You could even run away. The computer has us castling queenside now. After f4, the computer just ignores it, gives up another piece, has us take on g2, right? Guys, we're down 8 points in material. We're down 8 points, right? We check, okay? We check, right? White blocks, we play f5, right? Just to gain up some more pressure. We take on g4, check, right? And obviously this is a super long line, right? And, I can't, personally, I'm not to the point where I can, just calculate up to move 28 like Stockfish does. But I was honestly just shocked to see that, after the game was over and I plugged this in, getting ready for this video, that black here is apparently better after knight ge5. Okay. And if you guys watched the first video on this tournament, I talk about how this is often an option for the Hippo player, right? To just kind of break open the H and G files against a castled king. And it actually turns out to be pretty good some of the time. This line in particular, very complicated, very complex, a lot on the line in terms of sacrificing stuff, but the computer still likes it, right? Fascinating position here, resuming all the way to this position here. We're down 5 points, right? We're down 8 points, but talk about fire. Just talk about, powerhouse force here against that king, right? So all that to say, when I did see the move knight d2, I was going, oh my gosh, g4 doesn't work now because after takes, the knight has f1 available, right? Not just knight f3, which drops the bishop. So I played this move knight f6. Not like it's a huge error or blunder or something. Black's still in this game. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised that the computer has it as close as it is. At this point, over the board, I'm thinking, gosh, I just have a terrible position here. White plays bishop f3. I end up playing queen c8, just so that if you take my bishop, okay, I have a fianchetto queen. Knight de4 was the move here. This one surprised me a little bit. I ended up capturing back, and here Byron made a big mistake. Okay, White has to take with this bishop, right? And by the way, against bishop takes, I was planning to play f5, take back with the queen. You could argue that black's pawns are a little bit overextended. You could argue that these pawns are great for space, right? And it's really going to be a game deciding, trying to both sides trying to prove which one is which. But I felt decent here. I was going, okay, this is okay, right? I can work with this, right? This is a lot of space, potential attacking chances. We have a fun game of chess ahead of us, right? But instead, we see the move of knight takes e4. Why is this a mistake? Again, going back. With bishop takes e4, there's no way to distract this knight from the bishop. There's just no way to do it, right? But when knight takes e4 is played in the game, there is a way to distract this bishop, the lone defender of that knight, and that is by playing g4. All right, so I play g4 here. White takes, I take back, right? If you want to take my pawn, I'm going to take your piece. I'm just going to go up a piece for a pawn. So here Byron really had no choice but to just, I mean, he's going to lose material no matter what, right? So we see a bailout here with knight takes c6 check, taking on b7 and taking on d6. So now white is, I mean, at this point, down a piece for 2 pawns. So all of a sudden I go from thinking I have a terrible position, which apparently wasn't bad at all, right? But now I'm okay. Now I'm living. I have a good evaluation here. I'm up material. And it took quite a bit of time during these next few moves. I ended up, playing this move of rook d8. The computer multiple times wants me to play queen e4. I just ended up kind of denying this quite a bit because I was just so worried about queen a4 check ideas against my king. It just did not feel safe at all. Against c5, I ended up capturing. Again, the computer wants me to play queen e4, and I did consider this. I mean, this is a very strong move in the sense that it defends this pawn on g4, right? It's looking at knight h4 ideas, threatening a checkmate against that king. I was just really worried about queen a4 check ideas. Here I play the move of bishop f8, just handing the pawn back, but I capture on c5, play rook h4, and queen d5. So I'm back in this situation, guys. If you watched yesterday's video, you will have known that I got a piece, right? I was up a piece, up a knight, that is. But I was down 3 pawns. Now I'm in the same situation again, and I'm going, why on earth do I keep getting this, right? Now, that said, in this position, I felt a lot more comfortable than the game with Esther. Notice here, after queen d5, just centralizing that queen, white can't fight for that file because guess what? I'm just going to take one of those rooks out, right? If you take, I'm taking back again. This king is in checkmate. We got ourselves a ball game, right? Queen d5 is played. White here goes, okay, I'm going to play queen f3, right? I'm looking at ideas like queen h5, right? I'm looking at this. I'm looking at rook h1, right? I'm looking at getting this guy involved as well. A lot of stuff on the line here. But okay, queen f3 is played, offering a trade. I end up just taking. I play knight e5, centralizing that knight, threatening to, fork that king and rook. Byron continues by bringing that rook over. I win the pawn, right? Win the pawn. Knight d2. Forcing this rook to the corner, rook g4 check. Notice that this knight, on top of chasing that rook over, is doing a great job of kind of, keeping this king, right, on the sideline of the board. The king has to go over to the h file, king h3, and here I missed a mate and 11. Okay, apparently black has a mate and 11 here. I played the move of f5. Now looking back, I think this move just kind of overextends my pawn structure a little bit. But let me just show you the line, right? I mean, I guess so far the theme of this video is Stockfish finding crazy stuff that works somehow. So here we go, right? Here we go again. Rook g6 is the move, right? Rook g6. And I was thinking about, this general idea. Like, notice here, if white just waits to move, I play king e7. Guys, there's nothing that is going to stop this checkmate. This king is toasted. Okay, toasted with avocado on top. There's nothing that king can do. It is just done, right? But what about a move like rook g1? Right, these kind of lines. I think I briefly looked at an idea like this, and I just went, it just seems really complicated. It seems like the king can run. The king can run, but the king can't run forever, right? I play king over. Again, this knight's doing a great job of kind of keeping this king kind of on the sideline a little bit. If something like e4, I'm going to throw in a check, right? By the way, again, if you go back to the sideline, we just have a mate. Okay, so you got to go to the f file. You got to go to the f file. Here we have check. A lot of different things that white can do, including this. But at the end of the day, king e3, I think, is the best try for white, in a sense. But even then, we have knight c4 check. Notice these rooks are just pouncing on that king. This king has nowhere to go but back to e2. We throw in a check. We got 2 rooks on the second rank. And no matter how you slice this one up, let's just say a move like rook c1, we're going to get mate. Rook over, knight there. We got ourselves a ball game. But against king h3, I missed this idea. Right, rook g6 followed by rook h6, king up, and just using both my rooks and knights to kind of get that king into a little bit of a corner. I play the move f5, right? Rook g1 is played. I play knight e4, and I thought this was just going to be a pretty easy win. Although I underestimated this move of e4 because I can't take that pawn. I can't take it. I lose the knight. I ended up playing knight f6. I think looking back, I probably should have played a little bit more actively, getting my king involved. But I play knight f6. We have a capture. Notice now, I I only have two things on the board here that can get me a win. Only two. Pawn on f5, pawn on a7. That's it, right? This is my hope, right? Just these 2 pawns. White then plays king f4. I'm going, oh my gosh, am I not going to win this, right? But, I keep trying to play solid. I play rook d5, right? Defending this pawn, attacking that one. We have rook c1. I activate my king. I play knight e4. I'm trying to centralize here. Rook h1. I bring my king over to c7. This one took me a little bit to think through because I'm looking at this kind of stuff. And, again, I'm not wanting 3 pawns going, right at me. So I play king c7. Holy Day being against check, I can block. And here I was surprised. I think here if Byron just plays a move like rook back up to h6, it's going to be very hard for black to win this. f5 is on the verge of dropping. And I only have 1 lone pawn now that is going to try to make it to the very end of the board. A ton of work that black has to do. But here we have rook takes d7. And king takes f5. And white offers me a draw. I think about it, but then I'm like, what do I have to lose here? Right? Not much, right? Unless I just, somehow get promoted against. But I am up a piece for 2 pawns. But again, we got to play very correctly here, right? We don't have a lot of wiggle room for error. Okay. What are the things that white wants to do here? Notice, I'm going to highlight some pieces. If all of the pieces / pawns in red disappear right now, we have a dead draw because this king can go to the corner, go back and forth, and my king with an a pawn has no way to win that, right? Again, the knight's gone and these 3 pawns are gone. White there with a simple draw. The other way that white can draw is by simply getting rid of this a pawn. The second that this pawn is off the board, it's a draw, right? I cannot mate with a knight and a king. I just can't, right? Unless they just, I guess technically you could if you walk into the corner or something and then I, get my king here and my knight there. But what are the chances of that? 0, right? Pretty close. So this is really my only hope to win, right? That's it. And even then, it's a freaking a pawn. So if, white can get rid of my knight and put their king there, it's just a draw. That's it. Okay. Now notice here, I play knight c3, trying to really make this pawn on a3 a target. White moves this pawn up, right? You got to. I mean, if you don't, then I just win the pawn, right? And now we're starting to chip away at those pawns, and they're going to start falling. a3 is played. I play king c6, activating my king. King e5 is played from white, and I want you guys to think about this position a little bit, right? This, pause the video, and think through this position. What would you do here? Well, I think sometimes there's a misconception in endgames, and that is that we never want our opponents to push their pawns. Now, in one sense, of course, right? If you have a passed pawn and that thing's barreling down the court like LeBron James, you don't want that thing to be getting close to the end zone, right? You don't want them to promote. But there are moments where you actually want to invite the pawns to keep pushing forward because they become more and more weak. This is one of those examples, okay? Going back to the position here, I play this move of knight b5. Now, before I play this move, let's just go over some options that that black has, right? Let's look at this move of king b5, right? I looked at this, but not for very long because I saw that king d6 could be played. By playing that, I just let this white king kind of shoulder meet. There's 2 things that could happen now. First off, this pawn is starting to become a threat to promote, right? This is the biggest, this pawn's a bigger threat than this one, right? Let's just be honest. On top of that, this king can kind of just walk in, take the pawn, we have a draw. So I gotta keep my king on c6, right? This king is doing a great job of kind of shielding this king out from doing anything. The only way this king could do something is if he goes all the way around and it's just gonna be too slow, right? What's the weakest pawn in this position? The pawn on a3 is weak. But, again, if I go for this pawn, white goes for my pawn, we're going to end up getting a draw, right? In fact, the second that you do play king b5, the computer has it at dead even. We go from -88 to dead even right then. Is this pawn on b4 a weakness? No, it's defended. So is the pawn on c5. Right? So it's at this point, I got to start dancing around with my knight and inviting the pawns to push forward. The further they push towards me, my king is right there, the weaker they're going to get. I play this move of knight b5, right? Attacking that pawn. The pawn pushes, I have knight c3, right? Now, a5 wasn't played in the game, but notice, we have the same exact position that we just had a moment ago, right? king here, right? And then all of a sudden, we had a transport of this pawn to a5, right? Simple transport, right? We play knight b5, we play knight c3, and a5 is played. Why do we want this? Why do we want a pawn closer to us? Well, now this pawn on b4 is a target because guess what? There's no pawn defending it, right? We can now play knight a2. If you want to play back, we're just going to pick this pawn off. Now you got isolated pawns. I mean, we're just going to go 1, 2, 3. Easy ball game ahead of us. If you play check, we take with the king, knight b4, and our knight comes back just in time. In this case, just winning the pawn. We're going to win that one, and we're just winning this. Right, we're just winning. So, knight c3 is played. White here sees that a5 is just an easy loss, or just a simple loss, right? Because knight a2, and that pawn's just going to get picked off. So we see this move, king d4. I end up taking this pawn. King c4 is played. I invite you guys to pause this video and try to figure out what you would do here. There is only one move for black that wins the game. Okay. And I'm kind of spending some time on this because I think it's going to be instructional for you guys to think through it. There's quite a few moves here, right? The knight has 4 moves, right? Knight b6, taking the pawn, knight c3, knight b2. The king has 3 moves, and this pawn has 1. Only one of these moves wins the game. Only one. The rest of them, that's it, right? That's it. Pause the video and try to see if you can find the move. Well, assuming that you did so, let's take a look, right? Turns out, if this king moves anywhere, we ain't gonna win this thing. We ain't gonna win. Right? King goes back. Guess what? I don't care where you go. King b3 is played. This knight is now trapped. This knight can't go anywhere without being captured. Right? I mean, you could capture the pawn, but okay. Now we're just one-on-one. There's a number of things white could do. Again, we have an a pawn, so white could just go here and just back and forth, back and forth. It's going to be a draw, right? No way around it. Or white could play more aggressively and just try to get a draw pretty fast, right? Insufficient material here. The game is over. Going back, right? So again, any king move, simply a loss here, right? Or not a loss, a draw, right? Going to be a dead draw. You could lose it if you mess it up bad enough, but it's technically a draw. What about a move like check? Well, I almost played this. In fact, for a while, I was actually planning to go with this move. The issue is that king b3 is played, and my knight has to move. Right, you got to move this knight if you're trying to win. And the second that you do, the king now routes out. Right. Right now we're defending this square, but we can't move the knight while continuing to defend that spot. So the second that we move our knight, the king makes progress, and there ain't no stopping this king. Right. You can't stop the king from going to a5. So the next move, we're seeing that. Okay. Now we're looking at king a6. So if we just make another move or something, king a6, white is going to pick off that pawn. We have an insufficient material game. Again, king and knight versus king, you can't win. You can't do it. You can't do it, right? King b7, trying to stop it. b5 is played. b5. And there's really just nothing that black can do here to get a draw. If you move this king here, 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 or here, this is an option, right? Just breaking that, just trading off pawns. It's just hard. And if something like check, we just kind of, white just goes back and forth. There's no way for black to make progress here, right? There, we got a fork, right? So, this is going to be a dead draw. So going back, king c4 is played. If I play check and I go out, or really anywhere, this king actually circles around, right? Ends up going to a4, runs down. There's no way to hold on to that pawn, right? No way to advance it, no way to pick off their pawns, anything like that. The one move that wins here, right? By the way, I think all 3 of these, that just loses the knight right away, right? The only move that wins here is a6. Right. Now, it's pretty fortunate that move even existed. The whole idea is that if you play b5, we just take. Right? Take with check. We take on c5. We're simply winning that. Right? King and pawn versus king, and we have a knight. That's game over. In this case, if king b3 is played, which, by the way, was played in the game, we have king b5, right? Taking up space. Right? c6 was played in the game. Do I take this pawn? No. Right? Because I lose my knight. I got to play knight b6. c7 is played. Notice, white's not threatening to make a queen because we can just capture it. I play king c6. The knight is doing a great job here of kind of stopping everything, right? We're stopping both of these squares. We're stopping the promotion. And yeah, I mean, here white went with a promotion, played king a4. Again, I got to be careful. If I play a move like knight b6, white plays king a5, attacking the pawn. The moment that I defend it, b5 is played. We're going to trade off. We have a draw, right? So you got to keep being careful. Endgames, guys, are huge in chess, right? Not just for your endgame play, right? I know a lot of beginners never reach the endgame, but it's going to be helpful for your confidence as you ever do reach endgame. And on top of that, it's going to help your chess game as a whole. You may think that fewer pieces is less complicated. Oftentimes, it's actually more. So all that to say, right? Queen is made, knight, king goes up. Here, I got to play king b6, right? This is one of the moves that wins here. I think the most simplest. You know, the king can't make progress. If the pawn moves, we just take it. That's it, right? So here, white resigns the game right around this time. By the way, I just wanted to show you guys. So in this case, king b5. Again, we don't want to trade pawns, right? We want to dance this knight around so that we can pick this guy off, right? And then, you know, what I'd recommend here, if you have an a pawn, right? Again, if only the highlighted pieces are here, it's a draw, right? In fact, if only the highlighted pieces are here and you have a light squared bishop, it's going to be a draw because this bishop can't force the king out of the corner. If you have a dark squared bishop, though, you can force that king out of the corner and you're going to have yourself a win. Same goes with the knight. What I would recommend here, if you guys ever get this, just advance. All right, just keep advancing. Now you got to be careful, right? You don't want to play a2, force that king to the corner, and then get a stalemate or give up the pawn. What you want to do is have it so that your knight can come to c2. You don't even have to really be careful about when you bring the knight there. No matter what you do, you're going to have a check, which brings the king out, or the king's just going to be forced to walk out to c1. In this case, we would just have a check, check. Again, the knight is forcing that king out of the corner, which is what we want. We make a queen, and that's a ball game. So that is why Byron, resigned. Going back, after knight takes, king b6. Here we just play king b5, and our knight dances around, wins the pawn. We have a one ball game, right? But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this game. Not perfect, it's just a little bit weird. I honestly thought that I was doing a lot worse than I was, and I missed, that 28 move sequence that would get me a win. I missed the mate and 11 as well. So yeah, I got some stuff to work on, but yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this as a whole. Remember to work on your end games, keep plugging away at that hippo, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Hey, thanks for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Wanted to give a big shout out to my Patreon supporters for the month of June in 2023. If you haven't checked out the Patreon before, go make sure to check it out. We'd love to have you join the family, and we are continuing to add more and more benefits that you get, right, by becoming a member. As always, thanks for watching today's video, and I hope to see you in the next one.